Yo, this is our third day in Kyoto, and today is March 21st, which is a national holiday. It's spring equinox day, we believe, and a lot of people are not going to work today, so the streets are pretty empty. And right now we're going to be walking towards our breakfast restaurant. In Kyoto and in Japan in general, there's not that many restaurants that are open for breakfast. I think most people here just go to the convenience stores and get a snack and get a coffee for breakfast. So this is one of the few breakfast restaurants that's open at around 8 p.m. or 8 a.m. So we're gonna be seeing if it's too crowded or not. Essentially, right in front of our Airbnb, there is a whole street of sakura or cherry blossoms, and they are starting to bloom today, as you can see behind me and also see in this video. They're expected to be fully in bloom in about 7 days, but hopefully before we leave for Tokyo we can catch a glimpse of the partial full bloom, which will still be very beautiful. We spent a lot of time planning for this Japan trip, over 40 hours of planning, and we planned everything from restaurant reservations to kabuki theater shows. But in Kyoto in particular, I think you have to put in a lot of time for spontaneity. There's a lot of sites and things in Kyoto that you want to stop and take a look at, but if you pack up your agenda, you probably won't have time to do that. So in Kyoto, there's a lot of street food and that kind of stuff that you want to eat, and you have to plan it into your agenda for that kind of situation. Breakfast for us was at Lorimer, Kyoto. It's a small, kind of young staffed breakfast restaurant with a set meal that includes side dishes along with a cup of rice and a miso soup. So we got the second tier set, which is 5 side dishes and the regular fish for the day. So the fish for the day we got was the salmon, and there was a soy sauce or a salt choice, and Claire got the soy sauce salmon and I got the salt salmon. Overall, the food was okay. It was nothing spectacular. We would probably not go here again. It's probably not a place that, it's pretty expensive as well, and the staff there were not as nice as we are used to in other places of Japan. So I think in general we feel like the people or the restaurant staff in Kyoto are not as nice as they are in Osaka. And so we that's our impression so far. But we've only been to maybe 3 restaurants so far. The people in the restaurant that we went to yesterday in Arashiyama were very nice. So who knows? Maybe we're just catching a bad luck break in terms of nice people. So right now we're gonna be headed towards the supermarket in Kyoto to try to buy some snacks and whatnot for our Airbnb, because we don't have any free breakfast in our Airbnb, so we kind of need to have some snacks and some fruit to eat for breakfast. As you probably already know, Japanese supermarkets are always packed full of organized and visually enticing goods, but the 2 things that you must try from the Japanese market is the Ohio pudding and also the fresh strawberries. So make sure to buy some Ohio pudding and fresh strawberries whenever you're at a convenience store or at a supermarket. During March, there are many types of flowering blossoms in Japan, including plum blossoms and cherry blossoms. And even within cherry blossoms, which are sakura, there are many different types of sakura, and the most famous kind of sakura is Some Yoshino. The Some Yoshino, you can see in this video here, has a distinct notch at the end of the petals, along with a more whitish color compared to some of the other blossoms that you see in Japan. So the Somei Yoshino are the ones that are most closely followed by Japan's forecast companies. So the Japanese Meteorological Agency, or I think it's the Japanese Meteorological Company, JMC, they predict the full bloom and the initial bloom of all the sakura in Japan. And the predictions are actually accurate, or they try to predict the blossoms all the way down to the individual parks and regions in Japan. So if you're interested in following the sakura, you have to closely follow the forecasts. This year in Japan, the Somei Yoshino are blooming a lot earlier than typical years. This year, it's about 9 or 10 days early, which follows a pattern of the previous few years where with the warmer weather, the blossoms are blooming earlier. So it's very difficult to plan your vacation to match the full bloom of the blossoms because they can vary, up to 10 days. And so unless you're planning a vacation where you're staying in a particular area for 10 to 14 days, it's very difficult to catch the full bloom of the sakura. Despite it being a rainy day today, we still decided to rent a kimono at Okamoto kimono rental, and we didn't really have a choice because we made a reservation at 12:30 today and it happened to be raining. And so overall we thought the experience of renting a kimono was very good. It was not that expensive for what you get. I mean, there's a lot of service that they have to do for you, like dress you up, help you select the attire and all the different accessories, and also do your hair. The total came out for us to be about $70 total, which is, for the amount of labor that they have to deal with for you to get you dressed up and everything. It's a very good deal. So overall, we really enjoyed the kimono rental service, and also because it's raining today, it's not that hot. We can imagine on a really hot day, we think it would be too hot and too sweaty to be wearing a kimono and walking around. Your movement is kind of limited in the kimono because they tie everything very tightly, and so it's kind of uncomfortable to walk around a lot. We do have some tips for renting the kimono. Make sure that you are thinking about how hot it's gonna be on the day that you're renting the kimono. Like today is about 59 degrees Fahrenheit, which is around 10 or 12 degrees centigrade. And so it does get super hot. And even on this cool day, we are feeling quite a bit warm walking in the rain. So on a hot day, it would probably be way too hot for walking around in a kimono, especially if you're walking a far distance. The other thing is that you don't have pockets or anything. You don't get to pee. It's very difficult to pee or poop. So make sure you do that stuff before you start the kimono rental, and make sure you don't drink too much water beforehand. And the last thing that we want to say is there's something else we wanted to say that's important, but it doesn't really come to mind right now. If it comes to mind, I'll tell you later. Okay, we just remembered our last tip, which is when you're picking out a color for the kimono, make sure you hold up the kimono before you put it on and take a picture of yourself with the kimono color in front of your face to see how the color matches your skin tone. Because sometimes when you're just looking at a color, it's difficult to see how that color will affect your skin tone and the overall look of the kimono. And if you take a picture of it with your cell phone, with the fabric and your face, you'll get a better idea. The other thing to consider is that the flip-flops or the slippers that they provide are not very comfortable for men, especially mine, which is kind of flat-footed. But the one that they gave to Claire is actually very comfortable for walking. She's very impressed by how comfortable the flip-flops are for walking. I mean, she's been walking for about 30 minutes now, or almost an hour, and she still feels like her feet are comfortable. We are now done with our kimono rental, and overall it was a very enjoyable experience for us. Some of the customer service at the kimono rental place was a little bit empty at times, but they did their job professionally and we were comfortable the whole time. Now to complete our third day in Kyoto, we're going to be headed towards our first Michelin star dinner in Japan. It's going to be at Nakazen, which is a Kaiseki restaurant. And we just finished our 2-hour meal at Nakazen. It's a 1 Michelin star restaurant in Kyoto near the Kinkakuji temple. And we have to say that this meal is definitely the best seafood meal that we've ever had. And all the different textures, all the different types of seafood and fish and scallop and squid, everything was prepared basically to perfection, and all the flavors were amazing. It was never too much of anything. Everything was just right. And to top it off, the chef, I think he's Sasaki Takemo or something like that. Sorry, I'm butchering his name, but he was very kind. He was very helpful, and he really tried to explain each of the ingredients in the dishes in a way that, you know, shows that he really cares about us and the ingredients and the whole experience. And so it's definitely one of those restaurants that you feel like you're at home. You don't feel intimidated, and that's one of the things that we were afraid of when we first before we went to this restaurant. We were thinking that since this is a very traditional Kyoto Kaiseki meal, that we would be intimidated by the service and we would be treated kind of as an outsider, but that wasn't the case at all. This chef Sasaki, I guess he trained with some other American chefs, so his English wasn't that bad. And we just have to say that, you know, this meal it is on the top of our Michelin star meals. I mean, we've had almost 10 Michelin star restaurants, and this meal ranks up there with our meal at the Stand restaurant in Budapest. So if you are in Kyoto and you enjoy seafood, don't miss Nakazen. It's just a really good experience. It's so relaxing, and even if you're a foreigner, I think you would enjoy the experience at Nakazen. So that concludes our day in Kyoto. We had a fantastic day today. Even though it was raining, I think everything went as planned, and everything was just a really great experience. So hopefully we can continue having a good experience in Kyoto for the next 3 days, and then we're going to be heading to Tokyo.